What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. As you guys know, I am a massive fan of animals that are extinct and prehistoric dinosaurs. So one of my biggest dreams and hopes I ever had was, man, I really wish they'd still be alive. Well, that might be the case, thanks to this video we're reacting to. That's right, guys. Today we are watching extinct animals that might still be alive. Now, I watched a lot of videos that say, this could be alive, this could be, all of this, all that. I have very high hopes that maybe there is actual animals out there that we just haven't discovered that are still alive, that were supposedly extinct.
The concept of extinction seems pretty straightforward. An animal disappears, scientists search for it, find nothing, and eventually labeled extinct. Case closed. But in reality, it doesn't always work like that, as nature occasionally has the helpful habit of tearing up our metaphorical paperwork. Officially, we generally report animals as being extinct when there's no reasonable doubt that the last individual has died, basically meaning there are no known living individuals anywhere on Earth. But that known part does quite the heavy lifting here, because despite our satellites, sensors, and selfie sticks poking to every corner of the planet, our knowledge has gaps the size of continents.
Yeah, I really wonder how we can... I'm guessing everything we write down, as a population, I'm guessing it's more of an estimate rather than actually physically counting everything, because there's no way you would know how many people are actually alive in this world. It's just physically unable to be able to find out how many people are on this earth. I mean, maybe if they went through people that have been registered in governments, maybe that can count, because technically a lot of people would be registered, right? But how do you count the babies after that,
I mean, we've barely mapped 20% of the ocean.
And
then when you add on the fact that half the time we can't even find our own car keys, even when they are sitting in plain sight, well, imagine just how challenging finding the last surviving member of a species is. So that's all to say that even when we declare an animal to be extinct, there is a chance that it actually still lives. Few animals blur this line like the Japanese wolf, scientifically known as Canis lupus hautophalax. Once native to the islands of Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, the Japanese wolf was declared extinct in 1905, following a brutal triple whammy: rabies outbreaks, habitat destruction, and then the final nail in the coffin, a government extermination campaign. But this wasn't just any wolf disappearing to the mist of extinction. This was the erasure of an animal that had been woven into the very fabric of Japanese society and spirituality for centuries.
Is this what a kitsune is based on? Or is a kitsune different?
The Japanese state religion, the Okami, meaning wolf, was revered as a messenger of the gods, or kami spirits, and a protector against crop raiders like wild boar and deer. In fact, so revered were these animals that approximately 20 Shinto wolf shrines still stand on Honshu alone, and even villages across the mountains still carry names like Okami-iwa, meaning wolf rock, and Okami-taira, meaning wolf plateau, just serving as cultural echoes of an animal that supposedly vanished more than a century ago. And one of the most fascinating pieces of folklore that's also relevant to our story is the Okuri Okami, or escort wolf. Wolves that would allegedly follow lone travelers through the forest at night, accompanying them safely to their destination without doing them any harm.
So this is like the modern, well, not modern, the old version of dogs, like a companion. They follow you, they help you. Yeah, like a companion. It's like our dogs. Dang, so why did they kill them if they were they not seen as pets around that time? When did we start actually seeing animals as pets? Because I know cavemen had companions, right? They had to have animals.
And then, beyond culturally, this wolf was further impressive as it was a rather divergent subspecies of gray wolf that might actually been closer related to the first wolf ancestors of man's best friend. To be exact, a 2024 study found that Japanese wolves were not only more closely related to Eurasian wolves than North American wolves, but that they were also more closely related to domestic dogs than to other wolves. And then in addition, further analysis on its DNA revealed that some modern Japanese dog breeds, like the Kishu and Shiba Inu, possess some of the exact same genetic markers as the Japanese wolves, serving as living proof of ancient crossbreeding that has preserved fragments of the wolf's genome even to this day. The Japanese wolf was also physically distinct, representing one of the smallest gray wolf subspecies out there, only standing a mere 56 to 58 centimeters at the shoulder, or about 22 inches, which, to put that into perspective, is barely bigger than a border collie. while on the other hand, North
like
American gray wolves can measure up to 91.5 centimeters or 36 inches at the shoulder, making them over 50% taller. But it is this small stature that might have theoretically helped it avoid complete extermination, potentially. Because while it has been declared extinct, there have been dozens of reported sightings that have emerged from the remote mountains of Honshu and Shikoku, the same misty forest that this animal once called home.
Quick intermission. Sorry guys, but we are so close to
400
subscribers, and I really want to be able to reach it, so I thought if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I will shave my head. That's right guys, so if you guys want to see that, make sure you guys subscribe. Anyways, back to the video.
And these aren't just campfire stories told by hikers who've had too much sake, as some of them even come with photos and videos that defy easy explanation.
See, I feel like that's going to be a big problem to us now and in the future, is trying to figure out if an animal is actually extinct or not, because thanks to AI, we won't even know if, like, we're going to have to really look into it in order to really classify it and know if it's AI, if it's really extinct, if it could be a new animal, you know, somebody could just be recording it and be like, we found a dragon. As you guys saw in, there was a video out there going around the internet that they found dragons in Ghana or something like that. It was AI, obviously, you could tell it was AI. So I feel like that's going to be a huge problem trying to decipher more animals out there and trying to figure out if they're extinct, because somebody can just say, oh no, they're not extinct, look, I found this near my backyard, and it's just an AI generated version of the wolf, you know.
And one of the most compelling examples of this occurred in 1996 in the Chichibu Tamakai National Park. A wildlife photographer named Hiroshi Yagi found himself face to face with a wolf-like creature calmly walking alongside the road.
Wait,
and now,
does Japan have wolves? Do they have, like, you know, not just this wolf. Do they actually have wolves?
He also managed to photograph it several times, and when wildlife experts examined the images, many of them agreed that the animal bore striking anatomical similarities to the supposedly extinct Japanese wolf. And more importantly, it did not match any known domestic dogs or other wild canids in the region. And what made this encounter even more unusual was the animal's behavior. It showed no fear of humans, walking right up to Yagi, which matches not only historical accounts of the Japanese wolf's relative boldness around people, but if you also remember, it also matches the legend of the Okuri Okami, the escort wolf.
Oh my god, that's horror. He just found the legendary Okami. Yo, this dude dead ass got blessed. I know, yo, if that ever happened to me at that age in Japan, yo, I'm not letting that go. I'm letting everybody know. I'm gonna be that crazy guy that tells you stories and believes them. That's gonna be me. I'm gonna be like, yeah, I met the Okage. You know what I'm saying? He approached me. He wasn't scared.
In fact, this experience was so compelling that Yagi and his team placed over 70 camera traps across the entire region in hopes of capturing this elusive wolf. And this measure finally ended up bearing fruit in 2018 when a video recorded a deer running by. And in the background of that video was some very interesting audio, howling. And yes, howling itself is not indicative of even a wolf, let alone a presumed extinct one. But the howling was analyzed by zoologists, who concluded that not only did these sounds not match domestic dogs, but rather that they sounded eerily similar to another subspecies of gray wolf, the eastern wolf, which is a North American wolf, and thus obviously does not inhabit Japan. However, despite all these tantalizing clues, I will say that significant doubt still persists among experts, with historical records showing that Japanese wolves typically traveled in small packs, yet most reported sightings are of solitary individuals. And more critically, the wolf's primary habitat, deciduous forests, composed largely of Japanese beech, has been dramatically altered, with over 40% of these forests having been logged following World War II. And unfortunately, since 2018, there have been no further confirmed recordings or sightings. But considering that potential evidence has extended up until 2018, more than 100 years after its declared extinction, this does point to at least the possibility that the Japanese wolf still might be prowling these misty mountains. And until we can get more concrete evidence of its presence, the Japanese wolf remains suspended in that curious limbo between confirmed extinction and possible survival.
That's good though.
But
that means it could happen. It could come back to life.
While the Japanese wolf might be playing hide and seek in mountainous forests, another apex predator is possibly engaging in an even more impressive vanishing and potential reappearing act. All the while on a tropical island, which measures only 85 kilometers or 53 miles in length. So in other words, in a place where hiding spots are relatively limited. So picture this, a small, isolated African island where the waves crash against white sand beaches.
Madagascar?
Tourists sip cocktails at resorts, and somewhere in the island's shrinking forests, one of the world's most famous big cats might still be stalking through the shadows. And this isn't the setup for a thriller novel, but rather the real-life mystery of Unguja Island, the largest island in Tanzania's Zanzibar archipelago, and home to the Zanzibar leopard. The Zanzibar leopard is thought to have evolved in isolation from mainland leopards since at least the end of the last ice age, when rising sea levels separated the island from Tanzania roughly 10,000 years ago. This isolation led to it both becoming smaller than its continental cousins and developing a relatively distinct appearance, with the typical leopard rosettes having partially transformed into spots. And yet, despite its isolation and odd appearance, it's actually not as genetically distinct as one would think, being less divergent than other leopard subspecies which are in mainland Africa. But nevertheless, it had called this island home for over 10,000 years. But in the 1990s, the Zanzibar leopard was declared extinct. But unlike many extinction stories involving habitat loss or hunting for fur, this wasn't a case of gradual decline.
Yo, it's something about animal, being declared extinct that makes me low-key sad. It's like, it's a fact knowing that I won't ever get to see this animal roam the earth ever again, bro. And it really, I feel like if I ever see another animal get extinct, it might, if I ever saw it there, let's say I was there when the white rhino got extinct, I would deadass cry, and I don't know what I would do, because that shit would hit me so hard.
But rather, a systematic eradication fueled by something far more primal: fear and superstition. You see, these animals weren't just feared as predators, they were demonized with the widespread belief that they were products of witchcraft.
Really?
And according to deeply entrenched local beliefs, these leopards weren't just wild animals, but were rather kept and trained by witches to harass or harm villagers. And farmers especially embraced these ideas as explanations for why leopards appeared around their farms, with this, in their minds, not being just animal behavior, but rather malevolent witchcraft manifested in feline form. And with the growth of both agriculture and population in the region throughout the 20th century, this conflict only became worse. And what began as isolated incidents of farmers killing leopards snowballed into something much larger and darker, reaching its climax in 1964, when authorities launched an island-wide anti-witchcraft campaign that specifically targeted the Zanzibar leopard. And unsurprisingly, what better way to catch witches and their evil companions than hiring a witch finder? And yes, I'm not joking. This was the leader of the island-wide extermination campaign. And unfortunately for our feline friend, this supernatural reputation proved too much, with these campaigns, and the general attitude towards them, pushing them to the brink of extinction. And by the late 1990s, wildlife officials reluctantly declared the species likely eradicated from the island.
Do you ever think humans take accountability? When we make mistakes in our history, do you ever think we take accountability for it? If we kill an animal and it's at the brink of extinction in that area, do you ever think that we try to do our best to, maybe help them repopulate again for our mistakes or something like that? Because sometimes I don't know. I don't like the fact that humans basically rule the world. I don't like that we determine when an animal has to die, and I don't like that we determine where an animal should live.
But thankfully, nature seemed to have some differing opinions, as despite the official extinction declaration, sightings of leopards never completely stopped, with local villagers reporting encounters throughout the supposed extinction period. And then in the early 2000s, leopard scat, or feces, was found, potential gold for wildlife biologists, who were seeking DNA evidence of its continued survival. But of course, in a cruel twist of fate, the samples were lost before they could be analyzed. However, in 2018, a very interesting discovery was made when a documentary crew from Animal Planet captured footage of what appeared to be a leopard on a camera trap. And this wasn't just some blurry figure in the distance, as the footage very clearly showed that it was a leopard. And so this was obviously big news, because if accurate, it could be proof of a surviving Zanzibar leopard population. The only problem is, though, that experts remain divided on whether it was truly the native Zanzibar subspecies, or potentially a mainland African leopard that was somehow introduced to the island. So honestly, the verdict is still out. But signs do seem to be pointing in a rather optimistic direction. And if it has survived, that will be a true testament of persistence. Not only surviving a near-century-long extermination campaign, fueled, mind you, by supernatural fear, but also doing so on a tiny island as an apex predator. Not bad. But sometimes, an animal doesn't just go extinct. It transcends into legend. And such is the case with the Camphophilus principalis, also known as the ivory-billed woodpecker, a bird so magnificent it earned the nickname the Lord God bird. And why, you ask?
Lord God
Well,
bird.
because when people spotted one, their first reaction was reportedly to exclaim, "Lord God, what a bird!" A little cheesy,
Really?
but true. Once the largest woodpecker in North America, it inhabited the bottomland hardwood forests of the southeastern United States.
Florida.
And at roughly 20 inches long, with a wingspan of nearly 3 feet, this was no ordinary backyard woodpecker, being essentially the T-Rex of the woodpecker world.
Dang, I didn't know they
It had a
so
massive
many.
ivory-colored bill, hence the name, which it would use to literally tear chunks of bark off trees like you would peel an orange. And this wasn't just for show, as its formidable bill allowed it to access beetle larvae tunnels that no other birds in its range could
sucking
reach,
it up,
giving it
bro.
essentially a monopoly on a very high-protein food source. It
they
also
was
had very
holding a
striking
monopoly?
black and white
Oh,
plumage that,
shit.
combined with its ivory bill and size, made it quite unmistakable and very recognizable. Well, recognizable until it wasn't.
Let me guess,
Mainly
they got hunted.
because it wasn't there anymore. The ivory bill's decline was swift and brutal, with logging, hunting,
Yep.
and habitat destruction driving it to the brink of extinction by the early 20th century. But it was still alive, and in 1907, President Theodore Roosevelt himself reported seeing 3 of these birds during a bear hunting trip in Louisiana, a presidential endorsement which sadly did not save the species. By the 1920s, some ornithologists already thought they were long gone. However, they did manage to persevere for a bit longer, and a team managed to find a very small population of them in a little area within an old-growth forest in Louisiana, which was called Singer Tract. This was the last group
did
of
they protect
ivory-billed
it?
woodpeckers ever found in the US. And unfortunately, this old-growth forest was owned by 2 different logging companies,
Oh my
which were
God,
bent on cutting it down. But in an act of desperation, a non-profit known as the National Audubon Society made a remarkable bid to buy the logging rights so that these birds could live.
Did they get him?
However, in typical human fashion, the bid was rejected, and the forest logged until destruction. And the last universally accepted sighting in the US occurred in this very tract in 19...
Yo, can we talk about how humans are dead as like assholes? Can we actually talk about how we as humans back in the day, we were worse than Satan himself? I'm gonna say it right now. We were worse than Satan. That's right. How have we caused this much damage on Earth? I swear something bad is gonna happen to all of us. It's gonna catch up on us.
When artist Don Eckleberry documented a lone female in the remnants of this once proud forest, which was now on its very last legs. And for the next 6 decades, this bird existed somewhat in a scientific limbo, neither conclusively extinct nor definitively alive, with sightings sometimes being reported, but often turning out to be the similar pileated woodpecker.
Yo, wait, this is modern camera. Yo, this is a modern camera. Did we just find it again?
However, there was a number of compelling finds, including potential photographs, as well as even feathers that were conclusively found to be from the ivory-billed woodpecker.
Oh, shit.
But then, in 2004, something crazy happened. A 4-second video was recorded that seemingly showed a large woodpecker with the exact same field markings as the ivory-billed woodpecker. And the footage was so convincing that a paper was even published on it, claiming that it was in fact our extinct friend. But seeing that this elusive bird had been last conclusively spotted nearly 60 years prior, the claim understandably led to quite the backlash. With the birding world...
Do we know now? If you know how they released all those articles? If we look at it now in 2026, can we confirm how many extinct animals have been recited? You know what? That might be a video I'm going to do next. Let me know in the comments if you guys want to see that, or by dropping a like so we can see which animals were rediscovered again and weren't actually extinct. I really want to see that. So we might see that soon.
The believers and the skeptics, each accusing the other of wishful thinking or scientific negligence. And a number of researchers published oppositional papers going head-to-head against the believers, saying that this was not the ivory-billed woodpecker, and rather the pileated one. And the controversy wasn't just academic, it also had real-world consequences.
Really?
For example, the town of Brinkley in Arkansas, which was near where the sightings occurred, experienced a 30% increase in tourism. They even hosted the Call of the Ivory-billed Woodpecker celebration, which came complete with merch, woodpecker haircuts, and ivory-billed burgers, whatever that means. And in the midst of all this debate, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services decided to make their own investigation and end the argument once and for all. And after analyzing the video, they came to a conclusion that this was, in fact, our extinct, not-so-extinct bird.
Alright, what's the unfortunate part about this though?
Since then, nothing as conclusive has really come out. And while reports keep coming in from around the southeast, most can be explained away as a misidentification. And in 2021, without strong evidence of their continued survival, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service attempted to resettle the matter by proposing to officially declare the bird extinct once and for all.
No.
But let's just say that did not go over too well, with the public reaction being intense to say the least, with thousands submitting testimonies and purported evidence of recent sightings, which forced the agency to push back their decision for further review. And as of 2025, the bird remains officially critically endangered, possibly extinct, which is a pretty bureaucratic way of saying we have no idea. But I will mention that many ornithologists remain very, very skeptical, with one even pointing out the hypocrisy of there being incredibly rare birds that live in the middle of the Amazon, and yet people can somehow get good, identifiable photographs of them. But then on the flip side, people in the US have spent hundreds of thousands of hours trying to find and photograph the ivory-billed woodpecker, without conclusive success. Which ended with
I feel like it's rare for us to find an extinct animal here in the US than in the Amazon. I don't exactly know if we discovered all of the Amazon. I really want to know what's still out there in the Amazon. But I just think it's hard for us to do it here in the US because most of it, like I'd say in the middle of America is really where, you know, the only forest area is mostly at, you know, not forest, but like just plains and mountains and forest. So I think it's like really hard to find an, you know, animal, especially like a bird. I feel like it's going to be way harder because, you know, we have a lot of common birds. You see the ones outside of Walmart.
But here's the thing about extinction. Sometimes we just don't want to believe
aliens.
It. The ivory-billed woodpecker has somewhat become more than a bird, kind of morphing into a feathered Bigfoot of the swamps.
They can take a picture.
A creature that represents both perhaps our guilt about environmental destruction and our desperate hope for its survival. So whether it still exists or not almost seems besides the point. The legend is somewhere in the deep forests of the American South. This magnificent creature still hammers away at ancient trees, has taken on a life of its own.
And I believe
now, with all this said, hope is not lost for animals that even have conclusively gone extinct, as demonstrated by the Pyrenean ibex, also known as Capra pyrenaica, or locally known as bucardo.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Every subspecies of a species, I deadass can tell. If I see a goat and he looks a little different, I'm still gonna think it's a goat. You know, I'm not gonna say, oh, it's ibex. I'm not gonna know that.
This wild mountain goat once roamed the Pyrenees Mountains between Spain and France. Males display distinctive black markings on their manes, forelegs, and foreheads, while females wore more subtle, deer-like brown, with both of them having curved horns, all features that had evolved over countless millennia. But by the 20th century, relentless hunting and competition with domestic livestock had reduced their numbers dramatically, from thousands of individuals roaming freely across the mountains to a population that never exceeded 40 by 1910, and all confined to a small corner of Spain's Ordesa National Park.
No wonder
this decline continued until the last known individual, a female named Celia, was found dead in 2000. And get this, killed by a fallen tree. It was a comically tragic end for an entire subspecies.
What?
One moment
So you telling me you got taken out by nature itself? Yo, I'm not gonna lie, that's crazy. I thought we were gonna be the ones to blame again, but no, you fell to a tree. I'm not gonna lie, that's an outrage. I'd be mad if I died that way.
And to make matters worse, the Portuguese ibex, a related subspecies, had already disappeared a century earlier, making the loss of the Pyrenean ibex just that much more tragic. But as it turns out, Celia's death wasn't actually the end, as scientists had collected tissue samples before she had died, and thus preserving her genetic material. And then a groundbreaking experiment, researchers attempted something previously confined to science fiction, bringing an extinct species back to life through cloning. Using nuclear transfer techniques, they placed Celia's DNA into a goat egg cell whose own nuclei had been removed. And this was not an easy procedure, as out of the 285 reconstructed embryos, only 54 of them were viable enough to transfer into surrogate mothers.
Really?
And of those 54, only a single one developed a term. And on July 30th, 2023, a cloned Pyrenean ibex was born, marking the first distinct animal ever resurrected through human technology. And for one brief moment, extinction...
See? I feel like that's the beauty of us, humans. We can either create destruction or create something good out of what we have. You know what I'm saying? That's why I love free will. It could either be used for something bad, or it can also be used for something good. It just determines what you use it for. And for me, I personally want to use it for good. I watch too many superhero movies. that impacts my head now, you know what I'm saying? So I wanna be able to help these beautiful animals, and I'm happy that we were able to bring it back.
But unfortunately, the triumph was tragically short-lived,
No
as the newborn
way.
ibex died minutes after birth due to severe lung defects.
Dude, I was just hyping
a common
it up.
problem in early cloning attempts. But nevertheless, this marked a profound milestone in scientific history, the first de-extinction event ever, and also making the Pyrenean ibex the only species to have gone extinct twice. Maybe not the best accomplishment,
That's a flex,
but it did
I
set the
guess.
precedent that what's gone can come back. And perhaps with more companies, like Colossal
See?
Bioscience,
see
making
this
some
one.
headway there, even though that's not exactly the same process, we might be able to expect the real de-extinction of long-gone animals.
Well, that was the end of the video, and it does let us know our future could still be good, you know, we could still help all those animals, and it would be cool to, you know, res all those animals again, you know, get the reboot ban and unvault them. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys like and subscribe. If you guys haven't yet, let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this, and join my amazing team of researchers, scientists, and all the good people in this world, you know what I'm saying? These are the good people in this world, so if you want to join us, or you want to see yourself on my videos, and maybe this video does well, you can just join us by subscribing, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, that is the end of the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I got some research to do, and maybe I can revive a dead species. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.